it's not a fast and loose deck. It's in depth, it's deep. All right, and I'm back again with another top 3 fairy deck video. This one's on the Oracle side, and these ones are really interesting. They might be a little bit harder to find, at least 2 of them. One of them is still mass market. You can find it pretty easily. These ones I don't have any particular orders for, but they're ones that I find help me in my fairy spirituality, my fairy connections, even pulling in with fairy tarot. So I'm going to start off with the Fairy Guidance Oracle by Paulina Cassidy. This deck has a pretty good guidebook. The guidebook itself, you get some good information in the guidebook. It's an extensive amount actually per card. So I do find the guidebook really, really helpful. But the cards themselves, because they're Oracle, they have their words on here. So it's really great if you're just pulling these into a reading. These are really helpful, enlightening cards. They're good affirmation style cards, or good for that, looking for that better energy, higher energy, looking for some positivity. It doesn't mean they don't give you some more things to think about, but it's on the lighter side. This deck is definitely on the lighter side. It's definitely working with fae who are already there to be helpful to you, and getting guidance from them for like a specific kind of reading. And this could work with any kind of reading. It could work with if you're doing a tarot reading on jobs or relationships, home life, and it does really well as just a generic powerhouse oracle for those kinds of generic readings that you're doing, even on TarotTube, if you're doing readings for, like a collective reading, or you're doing weekly readings, or if you're doing daily polls for people. This would be really great for that. It's also a really good deck to put on your altar for something to think about throughout the day. This one right here is nurturing. Keep your inner child nurtured and you will thrive with vitality. And I think while it doesn't actually pull intuitively to me, it does pull on my wanting to journal with it. So I feel like the words down here, you can really pull into journal entries if you really wanted to, like if you wanted to connect to fae in that kind of journaling way. This would be a great deck for that. The next one I have is it's a powerhouse, but it's not as generic as, say, the Fairy Guidance by Paulina Cassidy. This is like the light, fluffy version. This is like the dark version. This is the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. The book is amazing, okay? This book is absolutely amazing. Great ways to connect with the Fae. I would say that if you were looking for the Oracle deck to reach out, it would be the Brian Froud. I would suggest the Brian Froud Fairies Oracle, because he sees them in a unique way. These are fae that have shown themselves in some way to him and have already reached out into the human world. So they're already there. They've already sought a connection with humans. And so these would be great fae to like do a deep dive inside the card. What is he thinking? What is he going through? How does he see you? What are you doing right now that he's actually like peering inside your little world? And what would he see? What would he think? And if you're peering inside his, like if you walked through this card, are you going to be in a cave? Are you going to be in his home? Are you going to be on a path that he's just walking by? This would be great, like in-depth pathwork style cards, deep dives that you can do with your internal self and actually connect in Faeland for some of this really, really intense connections. I feel like they'd be more intense connections. And the guidebook, some of the things in the guidebook will even help you with that kind of path work with the card and meditation even. These cards are fantastic, and it even gives you different kinds of fae, like the light fae, because they don't all come to you in a form, right? Sometimes they come in your mind's eye as a light or a thought. And these cards really help represent that idea of just the different ways fae can present themselves in your life. And again, these are fae that have already reached out. These are fae that have already seen part of the human world, have experienced part of the human world, and have maybe even reached out in connective ways to interact, to be seen. And to be seen is really, really important. That acknowledgement, that respect that comes with seeing, noticing the fae. If you want them to notice you, you're going to have to acknowledge them too. That's just part of the fair exchange. There's a fair energy exchange that comes with fairy work. And I feel like the Brian Froud Oracle deck, Fairy Oracle deck, really lends to that. And then the other one, and this one's going to be the easy one to find. The Paulina Cassidy Fairy Guidance one is not on the market right now, but I heard that she's coming up with another one, so it might come back in the next few years, I hope, and I plan on getting that one too. The other one, this one's harder to find. It's an indie deck. It's Fairy Enchantments by Ian Daniels. It has a really interesting way about this deck. This one is deep, okay? This one is very deep. It has a lot going on with it. You can even use some of this as tarot readings. He says so in his little guidebook. The guidebook it's a good guidebook. The way it's put together is awful. It's actually falling apart, which I've mentioned in several videos. It did not stay together well, but there's so much good quality information in this guidebook. It's unreal, okay? And there's a lot going on with this deck. This deck has a ton of stuff. You can find your soul cards. It talks about your sun, moon, and rising. You've got to know some information in order to get to really dive deep into that. But this is good for like fairy spell work, okay? This is good if you have made those connections, if you are wanting to go a more magical way with fairy folk. This would be the deck you would use. Not only is the artwork intuitive, right, and inspiring, it also has so much information just in what you're seeing on the card. It gives you an emotional, visceral response to what's happening in the cards, and it's very fairy related. And then the backs are not the same. They each have different things on the backs, and they play together in a certain way as well. So this, say you pull two cards, say you pull these two cards, these runes you can actually use in spell work. You can even put them together. You can use them as individuals. You can take certain things off these lists and use them in your spell work. And then you can even create an incantation based off the words that you find in the two cards. And then on top of that, you can actually look inside the book for the name that's on the card and get even more from the actual description of the card and what the card's trying to acknowledge, what the card's trying to tell you. This is very deep. It's very intense. It's one of those decks you could just pull it and work with it, but it'd be better suited for somebody who's going to spend more time on it. I do think it would be great if you are trying to read with other people, as long as you know the deck really well. It's not a fast and loose deck. It's in depth, it's deep, it's engaging, it's all the things. It's knowledge. It's one of those kinds of decks that you really just have to push yourself to go deeper, to dive further, to take that extra step. And this I fully believe would be when you already have a connection there, when you already have something that you're working with in the fairy world, fairy realm, or fairy being. When that connection has already been established, you've created a friendship, you've created a working relationship, this would be the deck I would use for spell work, for incantations, for general fairy work, the kind of stuff to really like pull in that magical aspect that you can learn from the fae. So that's my top 3 oracle decks to play with. I'm sorry that not all of them are available mass market, but to be perfectly honest, that's just par for the course when it comes to tarot and oracle decks. Some of them are going to be available and some of them aren't. These are just my favorite. These are the ones I work with the most, and these are the ways that I work with them. So hopefully this was helpful for you, and let me know in the comments if you have a favorite fairy oracle. Thank you so much for watching. Have a very great day.